Join Dalton and Jacob as they discuss the ever-changing world of trading card games. TCG Buzz starts now.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of TCG Buzz. My name is Dalton and I'm here with Jacob.
Hey guys.
And in today's episode, we'll be talking about the fall of Cardfight Vanguard, ?
What we mean by this is we're going to be talking about how the game might be dying and it might not be. The reason we're talking about this is because over the past couple months, Dalton and I have both been bombarded with people in person at our local card shop and online on different forums about Cardfight Vanguard, like the Cardfight Vanguard wiki, saying the game's dead, or it's dying, or it's only going to last a couple more months, and then it'll be gone forever. I don't really agree with that, so I thought it would be a cool discussion for us to have in an episode.
And I'm kind of on the fence on that, because I believe that it's still going to go strong, but yet I'm still feel like it might die off, but it might just be its whole evolving state right now.
So why don't we just get right into the discussion then?
Yes.
First of all, I think we should discuss why people think Cardfight Vanguard is dying. Why do you think people are thinking that way?
I think people are thinking this way because they're adding some new mechanics to the game, and a lot of the older players are falling out of it. They've kind of lost connectedness to the certain clans they used to play with, because now they have certain keywords in their clans that kind of force you to play it in one style, where before they had a few different ways to actually play. But this is also bringing in newer players who are now finally getting interested into the game itself, and they're kind of replacing the old players at the same time. So it's a bad but yet good thing for Cardfight Vanguard.
Now my question is, do you think the number of players who are leaving the game and the number of players who are entering the game as new players are equal, or do you think there's a larger number on one side?
It's kind of hard to say, but just kind of based at our local card shop and knowing a few players who play Vanguard, and when we started up, it kind of seems like there's more people actually leaving the game than actually coming into the game.
Our local card shop runs a Cardfight Vanguard tournament every week, and for the past 3 months, they have not had enough players to have even one tournament. Whereas, just say 6 months ago, you couldn't fit all the people wanting to play in the card shop.
Yes, very true. It was crowded those days.
So that might be a bad sign, and I'm sure that's happening at some other local tournaments because those people are either losing interest or they're turning to other card games. I know at our locals, Force of Will has stolen a lot of people's money and time.
Yes, that does prove quite troublesome for Vanguard, but I think they'll still prevail, just like how Yu-Gi-Oh! Did when it was going through its whole dying era as well.
Back in about 2006, 2007, when Yu-Gi-Oh! Was hitting the 5Ds era, where they started adding synchro summoning, at first people had the reaction of, oh, this is really, really cool. But within just a couple of months, it went from this is a cool new mechanic to, oh, they're trying to ruin the game and it's only going to last a couple more months, maybe a year at best. And you know what? It's 7-8 years later and this game is still going on. Maybe not as popular as it was then, but it still exists.
Yeah, and it's actually, I feel, might be a little bit stronger than it was back then as well. Because now they have a lot more newer fans into it as well. They've added a few more mechanics to it. So it's really just like an evolution stage. It's a little part of the process, if you want to say. Kind of going from a caterpillar to a cocoon to a butterfly. And on the other hand, it could end up like Duel Masters, where once it hit its critical point of either adding a new mechanic, it actually just died off.
I think the big difference is the reason Duel Masters died off was because the tournament scene for it fizzled out, and there was no incentive to play the game at a high skill level. Whereas Cardfight Vanguard right now, there are more players playing in regional tournaments and the continental tournaments this year than any year previously. In fact, at the regional tournament we attended back in September, Last year they had maybe 150 people, and this year they had a completely unexpected amount of almost 500 people there, and it was crazy packed. The workers were scrambling to figure out how to fit all those people in seats. They actually had to go to another hotel and ask to borrow seats.
Yeah, it's quite funny. But that's actually a good thing for Vanguard. That means hopefully they'll keep continuing more like Yu-Gi-Oh! Caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly.
Part of the reason why people are saying the game is doomed to gonna die is because they're scared of the change. You know, kind of like when Yu-Gi-Oh! Had its Synchro era. Cardfight Vanguard is going into a very different era of the game using the G units, the stride generation as they call it. And the game plays very differently. Now, I do think there are some problems mechanics-wise, and the company that makes the game, Bushiroad, I think has made a few mistakes which are causing some of these doomsayers, if you want to call them that. For example, the game is pushing heavily towards keywords, which I know you mentioned earlier, which are specific abilities that basically force players into a specific deck style. But at the same time, there's a lot of legacy support, which legacy support is support for older cards that maybe not very many people play, and they're new cards that support those cards to make them more popular. The problem is they're pumping out all new cards to make old cards better and usable in the modern day, but they're not reprinting all of those old cards like a lot of card games do. A good example would be a card called Nightmare Doll Alice. It's a pale moon card, so it's a giant doll, like a marionette. And she was a triple rare card in the 4th Vanguard set ever released. And a year ago, one copy of that card was valued at about $5. And now, because she's gotten more support recently and is getting more, one copy of that card, which is now hard to find because they don't print that set anymore, is over $35. Which means that if someone wants to play one of these deck styles that maybe just got into the game, they can't.
Yeah, that's pretty harsh to do to people. Even though it's probably their next wave that Vanguard's planning on doing of maybe a new booster set for all their old cards and reprinting them and all.
I remember when I first got into playing the game, this was only about 6-7 months ago now. I really, really wanted to build a Goddess of the Full Moon Tsukuyomi deck. Then I found out that because it was a triple rare that was never reprinted, Goddess of the Half Moon Tsukuyomi, which is a card that is completely necessary for the deck to work, is at $40 a copy, depending on where you go. If you're lucky, you can find it for like $25 a copy. That means for one set of cards, which you need 4 of in the deck, it's $100. If you're lucky.
And you're not lucky.
Nope. In order to build that full deck, I would have to dump about $400 into it. Into a game I really wasn't sure I liked that much yet.
It's only $400. What's that to you?
That's a lot of money when I could be spending it on other trading card games, or I could just buy one of the newer trial decks for $20 and then buy maybe 20 packs and use that to build a deck that honestly would probably be equally as strong.
Very true.
So I guess the one thing that Bushiroad could do to help the game keep off of life support and thrive would be to maybe come out with a new pack that has just reprint cards in it of some of the best units from older sets that people still want to play.
Kind of like what they've done in their other game that they have called Buddy Fight, where even though it's only about a year and a half old now, they've actually already reprinted a few of their cards in what is called the Perfect Pack, which actually made it a lot easier to get certain cards. Like I remember when I was trying to search for a certain ninja card back in the day.
You're talking about Tsukikage, right?
Correct. And once the Golden Pack came out, I easily got the Buddy Rare form of it, of course. So it made it a lot easier. And then apparently just doing that increased my luck all of a sudden. And then I just started opening SPs and the triple rare form of it as well.
Let's be honest, though, it wasn't that easy for you to get them. You spent a lot of money to get that full playset.
At least $400.
You had some really bad luck for a while with opening boxes of cards and getting really good cards that you had no use for.
Yeah, gosh darn those incredible Mary Sues. I had no use for you until now.
It was funny because you're like, I got another box of Cyber Ninja Squad. And you're like, oh, I got a $25 Mary Sue. Aww.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I'd like to point out about Vanguard in its current state is the anime, which I know you don't watch. It's one of the few animes I do watch. It's at the point right now where I'd argue it's at the best it's ever been. But so many people sat through the seasons that weren't so good, and they gave up on the series and said, no, I'm not watching this anymore. And they got tired of it. You know, it's hard for a company to release an anime about card games that goes 6 seasons long.
Yeah, and I stopped after the first season. Even though I really did enjoy the first season, it wasn't for me.
Skip season 2, skip season 4, and you're good.
All right.
But the thing is with it, I think if they really push the anime, they could get some of those players back into the game that have left. Because right now with the anime, the writing's really good. The story is probably the best it's ever been. They've brought back all of the old characters to show off again, because in Season 5 they did a reboot with a brand new cast, and Season 6 has both casts together. And the plot's getting pretty dark, which is good for Vanguard, because whenever the plot gets dark or kind of morbid, the show is really good. It's the cheesy seasons that people don't like.
But what I've noticed from our local card shop, though, is not many of the Vanguard players actually watch the anime. So it might be a toss-up if people actually try to get back into the game who used to play it back in the old days.
When the game first came out, there was a huge incentive to watch the anime because it was a great way to learn the mechanics better of the game. And they did a really good job of teaching specific tricks to the game in the anime. Or even just mentioning issues that you might have with the deck, saying, oh, his deck's really good, but it's got too many grade 3s, so therefore he loses all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something they don't do anymore. I learned a lot about playing the game just from watching the first season. I don't really see that anymore. They focus more on character development and the plot than they do the actual game, which, in my opinion, isn't a bad thing, but I can see where a lot of people don't like that.
Yeah, kind of bring in a character like in the first season where they really like the game, but they've never actually played, and they go through developing that character along with introducing all these newer rules and different play styles as well.
One other thing that I think Bushiroad should do, and I think they've already started to do, that will really boost the popularity of the game, is filming and uploading matches at the professional level. A few days ago, I was on YouTube, and I saw that for the Continental Championships in Asia, they uploaded the final match of Buddy Fight to the Buddy Fight YouTube channel, so that players at home could watch two high-skilled players playing against each other and say, oh, I want to do that too. If they keep going in that direction, I can't see that as a bad thing.
So are you saying that Buddy Fight is arising?
I don't know if I'm saying that. I think the game's a little too obscure for most people's taste, despite being the best game I've ever played.
Agreed.
Other card games like Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh! Do that kind of thing all the time. Magic actually has hundreds upon hundreds of matches that are recorded and either put on YouTube or streamed on Twitch by Wizards of the Coast, because they know that they keep people interested in the game and give people goals. Instead of saying, oh, I guess the regional championships happened and that was cool, I can see the deck lists online, people can say, I want to be there. I see those two people playing, I want to be one of them. Is there anything else that you think Bushiroad could do to make the game live?
Probably do what they're doing with Buddy Fight and record a few of their matches to keep obviously older players intact and newer players to see like how far they actually want to go in the card game themselves.
One thing I just thought of that they could do is make trial decks for the game cheaper. And the reason I say that is Bushiroad's trial decks for all of their games are kind of expensive for what you get. The average shop price is $20, but if you look around, you can get them online for like $14. But other card games, that $14 price is the normal price in a shop. And if you look around, you can get them for under $10. The two examples I'd give is Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Trial decks are in the box, just a normal deck, $14. But the best example I have is Magic the Gathering. Their decks, quite frankly, are amazing for at most $15. I've seen them go brand new for $12 for the newest ones. Their decks are great. The deck itself is pretty strong, and you can definitely use it to learn the game, but also compete in casual tournaments against other people. But it also comes with 2 free booster packs, which Magic packs are about $4 a piece. So really, you're only paying like $4 to $6 for the deck.
That's really cheap for a deck.
It's one of the reasons why I started playing Magic in the first place was I'm like, hey, this deck is really cheap and it's a good value and I might get some good cards in it. I've actually seen people open up a $15 Magic deck and then take the 2 packs, open them up, and get over $200 worth of cards in them.
$200 worth?
My favorite example is one person pulled a Gideon Ally of Zendikar as a foil in one of their 2 packs that came with a trial deck.
Mm-hmm.
And they sold that card immediately for $75.
Amazing.
I mean, we did not get anything too amazing in our packs that we got with several trial decks we've bought for the game, but you can't win all the time.
Yeah, we're pretty mediocre when it comes to pulls. You know, I just thought of something just now. Maybe if they made it a little bit easier to get some strides in Vanguard or even legions in it as well, it might keep people in the game a little bit longer as well and keep the game going on strong. Because what I've noticed, a lot of decks need certain strides or certain legions, but they're extremely hard to get, or you only get one piece of the legion and you can't find its legion mate or its legion leader.
I completely agree with you. My best example, I'd say, is the rather recent Link Joker trial deck, which came out. It's based off of the Messiah line, which is a really cool type of card, and I like them. I like their design. I like their play style. Here's the reason I gave up on them. In order to play the deck, you pretty much need, no questions asked, a card called Genesis Dragon Amnesty Messiah, which is from a booster set, and it is the hardest card to find in the entire set. It's a generation rare, meaning you have a 1 in 5 chance of getting it when you buy a box, which is 30 packs, so your odds of getting one in a pack are not that high. But the worst part is, in order to use that card's ability, you need to have a second copy of it. And these G units that require other copies of themselves sound fair in their cost, but they really hurt the player base because they force you to run extra copies of cards, and they force you to have the extra copies to even use their abilities.
Yes, this is very true. Maybe if they did a little bit something with adding cards with certain abilities that say this card counts as a certain G-break card, or even this card can be used as the Legion mate for a certain thing, for a certain Legion leader, it might make the game a little bit more interesting and make it a lot easier for people and make decks a bit cheaper for people as well.
Do you know how excited I would be if they released a stride that said this card counts as any card when you're paying it for the cost of striding? Of the stride's ability, I mean.
You'd be pretty gosh darn excited.
I would be. For example, Chronojet Next Stage, which is one of the big flagship cards Bushiroad is pushing right now. Most players run 4 copies in a deck, which means you only get 2 uses of it because it requires a second copy of it in order to use, is $65 a copy for the cheap version.
Oh, that's a lot.
That is a lot of money to be spending on 4 cards that aren't even in your main deck. They're off to the side, and you only use them once, maybe twice a game. I could not spend that much money on a full set of him. And even if you luck out and pull one in a pack, you still need to find a second one.
Yeah, so basically having one of it is practically worthless for you unless you have a second one already.
Right. Bushiroad has said that the reason why they require you to have a second copy is because it encourages players to trade with each other. But the problem with that is everyone wants a Chronojet next stage, so who's going to trade away their Chronojet next stage? Realistically, the only thing that's happening is it's forcing people to buy more packs, which sounds like a good thing, but it's really only good for Bushiroad because that crushes people's hopes of building specific decks. Before I found out that I needed Amnesty Messiahs for my Link Joker deck, I was really excited to play it. Once I found that out, I think I've played with the deck once since then. I moved on to more affordable decks that were equally as fun to play with.
Yes, I've actually played against this Link Joker deck, and it seems really incomplete without it. And then again, I do play with Royal Paladins and Gold Paladins. A little bit more affordable in the sense as well.
Depending on the build.
Exactly. But it does also seem a bit easier to trade for cards for those certain decks as well, because not many people run them as well.
I guess the best way to summarize the big issue with Vanguard right now is people are playing with their wallets, not their decks.
Yeah, that's what it seems like most trading card games are going towards now.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but some games are still out there and budget-friendly. Magic the Gathering's very budget-friendly if you're not playing at a super competitive level. You can build a deck for $2 that you can technically play. Yu-Gi-Oh's not that bad now, especially with the amount of reprints they've been doing. There are so many different ways to get a Dark Magician these days, it's not even funny.
Or even a Blue Eyes. And back in the anime, there was only 4 ever in existence.
And now, what, you have like 5 on your own?
No, I only have 3. I also have 3 Blue Eyes Toon Dragons as well. And a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon and many ways to bring my Blue Eyes back. So it's practically like I have 20.
You have too many Blue Eyes White Dragons.
He's afraid of the Blue Eyes.
It's the only deck I can't beat. Ever. It looks to me like Cardfight Vanguard is not dead, but there are some negative things going around with it right now, and I can see why people think that. Do I think the game's going to last around for 20 years? No. Do I think it's going to be around for the next 5? Absolutely.
And maybe within those next 5, they might introduce something else that makes it last another 5 as well.
Exactly. So, in short, do I think Cardfight Vanguard is going to die? No. And in a long, do I think it's going to die? No.
And my maybe has now finally changed into a no. I'm completely on board with Vanguard surviving. Well, that looks like we're running short on time here. But before we go, are there any new releases that our listeners should know about?
Believe it or not, no.
What?
We're recording this a little bit before Christmas, and there really isn't that much going on. I think most trading card game companies realize that people have spent all their money on gifts, and they don't have money to buy trading cards for themselves. So they're all waiting till right after Christmas to release new sets.
I blame Star Wars.
That could actually be part of it. They're like, oh, people are spending all their money on Star Wars merchandise. Unless we have a Star Wars trading card game, we're not getting anything.
Exactly. Well, that seems to wrap up the episode. Make sure to visit our website at tcgbuzz.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, I'm Dalton.
And I'm Jacob.
And this was TCG Buzz.
Thanks for listening to TCG Buzz. New episodes can be found on tcgbuzz.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. For box openings, deck profiles, and more, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.